Well, you're going to hit the road, you're going to pay more for gas, but don't get too upset just yet. Patrick Haan, GasBuddy's head of petroleum analysis, is joining us in the stream. I'm going to steal your thunder, and I'm going to get right to the part that made me smile in the notes you sent us, where you said, overall, not expecting record gas prices this summer. Should I keep my smile, or am I missing something?
No, let's put that one right to bed. Americans have been obviously worried as gas prices have soared the last 5 to 6 months, but at least for now, we're not expecting anything to happen that would bring gas prices to that average, which, by the way, that average back from 2008 when the national average hit $4.10 a gallon.
Patrick, how about for certain parts of the country, as we are heading to a holiday weekend, folks going on vacation, how much do they need to think about where exactly they're going and to be prepared for some of the higher levels in certain parts of the country?
Well, as you mentioned, there's pockets of higher prices. There's pockets of outages still with the Colonial Pipeline now resuming shipments. It's not too much of a problem, but in the Southeast, you're still encountering about 1 in 5 stations that does not have gasoline. In the rest of the country, you look at California, $1.12 above the national average. So if you're headed to the Golden State, you'll probably want to fill up before you go into the state. But this just highlights that anyone on the road this holiday, really, especially if you're crossing state lines, you're going to want to be aware of prices on both sides of the border because there's easy 20 to 40 cent a gallon differences between some states.
There used to be people would go to New Jersey from New York to go fill up because the tax structure was such that it was so much cheaper in Jersey. Let me ask you this. We saw in the Southeast during the Colonial Pipeline the panic buying of gas that led to the shortages. Is that all totally gone, or are people still kind of freaked and still draining supplies when they don't need to?
No, it looks like the panic buying is gone, but demand is so hot so far this summer that some of these areas are still encountering challenges. That is, there hasn't been enough breathing room for long enough for stations to really make full headway on getting those outages completely restored. So, and this highlights the fact that tourist destinations across the U.S. this summer, it could be more tricky to fill your tank up. That is, finding a station that is fueled. The reason for that is some of these rural areas where, national parks or theme parks, it's going to be a challenge for stations to stay refueled, not because there's a shortage of fuel, but because of the shortage of truck drivers that's been ongoing.
That's a really important part, the shortage of the tank truck drivers. What's driving that shortage? Was it because we saw this fall off in demand last year? Are they doing different careers, or is it just there's so much demand, it's been kind of hard to even, I'm just curious, why has it been so difficult to find these
it's a culmination really of all three of those issues, made worse by the pandemic last year. Some logistics companies had to let go some of those drivers. There wasn't product to deliver, or there wasn't demand enough for that product. So that was part of it, that kind of accelerated retirement. But this has been a trend, a shortage of truck drivers, that is, a trend that's been ongoing really for 4 years. Pay has not really moved a whole lot in the industry. And so when you have health concerns and then the pandemic hitting, it's hard to lure new drivers in. This is kind of like the pilot situation that we had pre-pandemic. That is, the amount of pilots aging is outpacing the amount of new pilots coming into the system. So it's a problem that's not going to quickly be rectified.
Patrick, I realize all bets are off this year because of the pandemic, but is there traditionally a peak week or two when gas prices hit their, apex during the summer travel season and then start to come down?
Well, typically, it's actually something that happens usually before summer driving season, combined with refinery maintenance and the switch to summer blend of gasoline. That's something that typically happens April or May. This year, with the economy continuing to recover deep into the summer, I think we could see our peak in July or maybe August even. That's, of course, when you'll have high demand and potentially hurricane season to talk about, too. So unusual year in that there's such strong economic recovery that's going to progress into the summer that we may not peak until July. And that peak could be anywhere from $3 where we stand today. It could be as high as $3.25 a gallon.
Well, I guess one quick follow. Is there anything from the Biden administration coming out that might help cap some of the prices?
Well, the Biden administration obviously got into the White House and immediately made anti-oil moves. That is largely symbolic, though, the shutting down of the Keystone pipeline, which hadn't really been fully open. There were portions of it that had been built. That was more a pipeline to help Canada ship crude oil down and out of the country. The other big issue, the moratorium on new wells. But oil companies aren't really focused on new wells just yet. After the pandemic, they're mainly focused on reactivating existing wells. So those two factors will have a future effect, not now, but now the bigger one entering the scope is potentially the Biden administration easing sanctions on Iran, which would allow Iran's crude oil to flow back to the global market. That actually could act as a cap to how high oil prices go this summer.
Patrick De Haan, GasBuddy, head of petroleum analysis. Thank you so much for joining.